Welcome back to a professional overview of Honkai Star Rail. This is part 2 of a 2-part video series? I don't know. It's part 2 of my overview of Star Rail. In part 1 I talked about the combat, elements and paths, and the game modes. And this episode, we have the exploration. This will go over the open world, the bosses and the domains, character building and how it differs from Genshin. This is a pretty long segment. And finally the gacha and if it's good or if it's shit. But, viewers, before I get into any of that, I want to correct myself on something I said in the last part. I mentioned that Nihility characters are debuffers. While this is true, their main focus is actually doing damage over time effects. Yes, this is still technically a debuff, but I wanted to correct myself. And now that the 1.2 livestream has been released, and maybe the update itself by the time this video is out, Kafka's kit has a bit more of an explanation. She has a mechanic with stacking DOT, and it's very electric effect heavy, so she'll have a much more DPS based character, unlike most Nihility characters, but she still is very focused on afflicting the shocked status effect, or whatever it's called. So, me saying she's a bit of an outlier in the last video is a bit wrong now. Okay, onto the main focus of the video, and I'll start off with the open world. Hey, editing Mixel here. I just want to point out, when I wrote this script, 1.2 wasn't out yet, but by the time this video comes out, 1.2 will be out, so I apologize if I ever said anything like, oh, there's only 2 Echoes of War, because now there's 3, because the Vantilia boss is out. So there might be a few errors in this, but if I notice any, I'll put a little thing on screen saying it's wrong, but yeah, I apologize for that. I was procrastinating and playing the game too much to save for Blade. Okay, enjoy the video. Now, Honkai's universe is huge, and it involves going to different planets, 2 as of writing this, with the space station alongside them. The way these areas work, there is one big area. This can be a safe zone, or not. The difference between safe zones are either enemies can spawn there, and they are also function as the main central town, so the Master Control Center for the space station, Administrative District for Eurilo 6, and the Central Starskiff Haven for the Luofu. Also, for future reference, I'll just be referring to the Eurilo 6 as Belobog or the Underground for future reference of this segment. The open world consists of a few big areas, some safe, some not. The safe zones have shops, and it's like a hub for main quests, being able to get quests there, and side quests, which I just said, and also has like a fair amount of chests. The non-safe zones, as the name would suggest, are where the actual gameplay is, having enemy spawns, domains, bosses, and chests, as well as warp trotters. Each of the main open world segments have about 10 or so of these areas, having 2 safe areas with each, and a few of them having safe zones in enemy areas, but these serve as very small areas which have a teleport beacon in, and they can just be a little safe zone, hence the name. You can check stuff here stress-free without getting spoiled, get your health and skill points back, etc. Every one of these non-safe zones will have puzzles, chests. They're pretty standard for any RPG, but they'll also have an elite enemy. These serve as a tanky, high-damage opponent that is a one-time spawn that will be guarding a high-end treasure chest. These will usually be enemies that are the same ones you fight in the Ascension materials for characters called the Stagnant Shadows, and they function more as just mini-bosses you can fight to get a decent reward. Finally, though, the warp trotters, which I mentioned briefly just a minute ago. These are golden pig looking guys that will run away from you. Hitting them puts you into a fight where the goal is to kill them before they escape. Doing so rewards you with 60 Stellar Jades. What's that? What happens if you fail to kill them? I have no idea. I assume it just despawns and you get to try again when it respawns in like normal. The open world has also got the equivalent to domains. These are the Calyxes, Echoes of War, and Caverns of Corrosion, and Corrosion, and I'll explain them in that order. Calyxes are like ley lines. These give you money and XP for leveling characters up. There is nothing more to say than that. They are the first ones you unlock the first time you go into Eurilo 6, which I'll actually say like that because it's not going nowhere near Belobog. But you get one pretty much as soon as you land on the planet. It's super simple, that's it. You fight some enemies, you get the rewards. Nothing to it. Echoes of War are a bit more interesting. These are the weekly bosses. Now, as of typing this, there are 2 in the game, and slight spoilers for this section, but the 2 bosses we have in the game currently are the Doomsday Beast, first fought at the end of the opening quest / tutorial-esque thing, then Kokolia, who's fought at the end of the Belobog questline. They are just a rematch of the boss, minus any death immunity or trial characters you had in the fight, so when you go and rematch the Doomsday Beast, you don't have the trial Himiko, and you're not forced to use the Preservation Trailblazer in the Kokolia fight. Editing Mixel here again. This also applies for the Vantilia boss. You are not forced to use a Genuine, although you can still use him, he's very good for the boss fight. And if you have a Genuine on your team and he dies, it doesn't automatically end the fight like it does in the actual questline Vantilia boss, which is very helpful. You also don't get any death immunity you may have had during the fight, which I'm pretty sure you get in the Cocolia fight. I'm not sure though. You get 3 chances to do them in any week, meaning you could do the Doomsday Beast 3 times a week, or Cocolia 3 times a week. In concept, I do prefer this to Genshin system of once a week, having 3 fights that cost cheaper. As in Genshin, fighting bosses gives you just 1 Ward you need to level of talent, and then you need to wait a week. But the counterpoint is, you cannot fight the Star Rail bosses without getting the rewards, so damage testing on tanky enemies is near impossible, for free anyway. The rewards from Echoes of War are pretty standard. You get the boss exclusive drops, used for trances. Relics, like Genshin, it's 2 specific sets. You can also get the Lucent Afterglow obtained in the Forgotten Hall that I mentioned in part 1. These are used to purchase a few set 4-star light cones, but additionally from the Echoes of War, you can get these light cones as a reward, as well as the currency to purchase them. So that's a pretty nice bonus, although I think these are pretty rare because I don't remember ever getting one of these. Finally, we have the Cavern of Corrosion. Again, these are pretty similar to regular domains in Genshin. These have 2 artifact sets, or a relic set as they're called in Star Rail, ranging from blue to gold ranking, 3-star to 5-star. It'll put you in a fight with 1 or 2 waves of enemies, usually depending on the difficulty. After you kill them all, you get your rewards. Again, like Genshin's domains, these usually have a damage bonus to a set element, and they're dotted all over the map, and you find them just by exploring. From each of these domains, you can get things to build your characters, perfectly segueing into the next segment. The segment I've been waiting for, the character building. Now, like I did at the start of part 1 and the start of this part, I listed some stuff I'm going to mention, and I'm going to do that again for this segment. We have the basic stats, the light cones, traces, relics, and the eidolons. Basic stats, as the name will tell you, are basic. We have HP, attack, and defense. Very standard. We have crit rate, crit damage, and energy regen rate. Same as Genshin so far, they just changed what energy recharge is called. Then we have the more interesting ones. We have speed. This affects the turn order. I mentioned this in part 1, so I won't go over it again, but for a brief recap, speed will affect the turn order. The faster you are, the higher your turn will be. Enemies also have this. So if an enemy is faster than your characters, it will act first. The other 2 unique stats in Star Rail that heavily affect the combat, there is the break effect. As the name will suggest, this increases a skill or ability's effectiveness to breaking an enemy's shield. The higher the stat, the more damage it does to the shield, making it easy to get an enemy into its vulnerability state. The other is effect hit rate. This is almost like the equivalent to elemental mastery, I guess you could say. It's the closest comparison. This increases the chance for attacks to inflict stats effects. This is usually a stat I dismiss, as the majority of the characters I use don't rely on stats effects, or they're not very good at inflicting them. This is probably down to the fact I don't use any Nihility characters on my team, but characters who are on the Nihility path, for example, Sampo and Silverwolf, who are Nihility characters, effect hit rate would be good for them, as Sampo's whole kit is based on inflicting wind shear, and Silverwolf's whole kit is about inflicting every status effect. Now to explain light cones, because I found these overly confusing for some reason. So, light cones are weird. You equip them, and at base they give you a flat increase to your health, attack, and defense. No matter what light cone equip you on what character, you will always get these 3 increases based on the level of the light cone. Then we have its correlation to the paths. Much like the characters, the light cones all follow a set path, and they all have a passive skill, and these are the best bits about them, the passive exclusive buff. So equipping Xingyuan's light cone and Erudition light cone onto Seela won't give her the 32% crit damage boost that the light cone would normally provide, so the passive bonuses are exclusive to characters that walk the same path as the light cone. Most light cones could give a bonus to a stat, for example an 18% increase to basic attack and skill damage. Light cones can also have a more passive ability, things that activate under a set criteria, like advancing actions forward after the equipped character uses their ultimate. That's one of my personal favourites. Most 5-star light cones usually have both of these. I know I use them as an example a lot, but take Xingyuan's. His light cone gives an increase to crit damage and ultimate damage. That alone could be a light cone passive, but the other skill that it has really makes it unique, which after using an ultimate or skill, it increases follow-up attack damage. Now, to no surprise, that is perfect for Xingyuan, as his follow-up attack scales after using your ult and your ability. But like all 5-star ones, they usually fit for the character they're going to be used on. Lawatcher's, I'm pretty sure, increases attack, his healing scales with attack. But that's besides the point. 5-star light cones have a stat increase and a passive bonus all the time, while the other ones may only have a bonus or a passive, or sometimes both. Moving on from the light cones that aren't cone-shaped whatsoever, we have traces, and even by comparing the menu to Genshin's turn screen, you can tell without reading anything, these have a much more significant role in building characters. While Genshin's characters usually have 6, 7 in the case of Mona, Ayaka, and Kokomi, Star Wars characters have 18 different talents. Like, what? Yeah, Star Wars choices are pretty whack. Looking at the screen, you can see the basic attack, skill, passive, ultimate, and the technique. With the exception of the technique that can't be leveled, all of these work as expected. You level them, it makes the skill buff, do more damage, heal more, so on and so forth. The passive will just make the passive stronger, much like it would imply. So if your passive increases damage when you do a certain thing, then it will increase the amount of damage you get after doing that set thing. There are 3 other passive skills you can also get by leveling. These are unlocked as you level the character up with ascension phases, and they open up the tree and grant access to these smaller nodes that will give increase effect hit rate, attack, crit rate, etc. Things the character needs for their kit. So if a character is attack based, they're more likely to have an attack based smaller node. Natasha, for example, has an outgoing healing bonus because she's a healer. I can imagine that Bailu and Watcher probably have the same one. Now, due to my level, I haven't maxed anyone out yet, but having looked over the characters' kits that I use, I can tell that most of the other passives are very nice to have. For example, one of Dan Hong's, wow, I'm not talking about Xing Yuang for once, increases basic attack damage to slowed enemies, and with one of his skills, he can slow enemies, so it works as a nice bonus to complement his kit. Another example that differs a bit is one of Xing Yuan's. What a surprise! If the Lightning Lord's attack counter is 6 or higher, its next attack has a crit damage boost for its next turn when it comes around in combat, and it is not difficult to get a 6 bonus via Xing Yuan's skill, technique, and ultimate, so if you play your turns correctly, you can nearly always guarantee that the Lightning Lord will have a crit damage bonus, which is really nice. And seeing as you always want to build as many hits with the Lightning Lord as possible, this complements his playstyle perfectly. That's the basic gist of the other passives, buffs given to the character under a set criteria to base around their entire mechanics. Next up we have the relics. These are incredibly simple. They're basically the exact same as Genshin's artifacts. You have 4 pieces in a set, 2 piece gives a basic buff, more attack, more wind damage, more defense, blah blah blah, and the 4 piece gives another buff. For example, in the quantum damage set, 4 piece ignores 10% of defense, but if a target is weak to quantum damage, there is an additional 10% defense which is ignored. The defense set makes shields stronger, good bonus to give to defense characters, as shields usually scale with defense. They are significantly simpler than Genshin's 4-piece artifact bonus. I'm looking at you, Ocean Hued Clam. But it may be because the game is still in its early updates. Hell, as of writing this and reading this, we are waiting for 1.2, while Genshin is going into 4.0 next. While Star Rail only has 4 relic slots for the main types, there are 2 other slots in the middle. These are the planar ornaments obtained through the simulated universe. These are 2 mini relics that give some very nice bonuses. There are, according to the wiki and my knowledge, 8 sets currently in the game, but much like relics, they are probably going to be added more over time, as new simulated universe worlds will be added over time, and different planar ornaments are gotten from different worlds in the simulated universe. The relics consist of 2 things, a ball and a string. The actual terms are the planar sphere and link ropes, but I can't be asked to say those all the time. Now, unless you have 2 different sets that got god-rolled good stats, equipping these without a 2-piece is effectively useless, as when equipping them with the 2-piece gives you the buff. For example, Inert Salsalto increases crit rate by 8, not bad to start, crit rate is always nice. But when the equipped character's crit rate is above 50% or higher, ultimate damage and follow-up attacks is increased. This set would be perfect for characters like Xing Yuang. I've really got to stop using him for comparisons. And Himeko, very follow-up centric characters. Yeah, Clara would also work, but her ultimate deals no damage to anything, so it wouldn't be as useful, and there might be a better choice. But still, full attack damage is always nice for full attack characters. Anyway, the planar ornament set gives a buff. When a stat meets or exceeds a set amount, you gain another buff. That is how they all work. That is the basic gist of them. Lastly, we have the Eidolons. These are the equivalent to constellations, and they're the same thing pretty much. Eidolon level 1 and 2 are both a buff. 3 is a plus 2 levels to either the ultimate or the skill, along with a plus 1 level bonus to basic attack. 4 is another buff. 5 will do the same thing as 3, increasing the level of what 3 didn't. So if 3 increases the ult level, 5 will increase the skill level. 5 will also have the plus 1 bonus to base attack. Then 6 is the final one, with a significant damage bonus in some way. I think I do prefer these to Genshin's constellations. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the constellation art. It's very cool and it fits Genshin's aesthetic perfectly. But come on, this is just so much cooler. The Star Roll Eidolon screen was even so good, some people have gone out of their way to make ones for Genshin characters, copying the same camera angles used in the Eidolon shards. Okay, jokes that aren't really jokes aside, the +1 level to basic attack should really be added to Genshin's Constellation level 3 and 5, with the bonus skill level to bursts and skills. The only way to exceed level 10 on normal attack is via having Tartaglia in the team, and that's just not good enough. They either need to give a 4-star with the same passive to get that damage bonus, or they need to add this +1 damage to Genshin's Constellation levels. It does say in Genshin's Constellation screen that the max level of a talent after getting Constellation 3 or 5 is 15, the same as in Star Rail, but to my knowledge there is no way to get 15 in Star Rail, and there definitely isn't a way in Genshin yet. So both games have this mistake, which I find very unlikely, or they'll both have a mechanic to get to level 15 at some point. If I'm wrong about this and there is a way to get to level 15 talent or trace in either game, do leave a comment letting me know. Alright, 1775 words later on character building, I'll finally talk about the gacha and how good or bad it is. Now I'm gonna rip into this straight away. I think the mechanics of Star Rail's gacha are way better than Genshin's. To start with, the beginner banners. Genshin gives you 20 wishes at a discounted price from 10 to 8, and you are guaranteed to get Noelle. Yeah, she's fine to start with, but she falls off in the game super fast. Star Rail's, however, ho ho ho, it's a lot better. Now, you still get the discounted wish price, being 8 wishes for a temple, no complaint there. You also get 50 wishes instead of 20. That's over double what you can get from Genshin's starter banner. Good for early game as you can get more characters and light cones. But here's the kicker. You aren't guaranteed a middle-of-the-road 4-star within those 50 pools. Shit, you're even guaranteed a good 4-star in those 50 pools. So, what are we guaranteed on the beginner banner, I hear you ask? Well, it's any of the standard 5 stars, and they're all amazing in this game. Why, oh why Genshin doesn't do this, I have no idea. Star Rail can give you a 5-star on any path with nearly any element. The only standard character that doesn't have one of the elements is Quantum, but you get a good Quantum DPS for free anyway through the Forgotten Hall. I love this banner. I think it's a really good way to both entice people to keep playing by giving them a sought after 5-star really early on, and it's good because none of them are bad characters. You have a good healer, the best shielder in the game, a good multi-target and single target DPS characters, good debuffer and the only imaginary DPS in the game right now, a tank, and a great attack buffer. Genshin would massively benefit from its starter banner giving 5 stars out, because all of Genshin's 5 stars have a use. Most of them are DPS, which is really good for early game, and all the other ones are either healers or buffers, which is again pretty good for early game. The event banner is the same as Genshin's, 1 featured 5-star, 3 featured 4 stars, 90 per max pity, and a 50-50 to win. This game doesn't do dual banners yet, probably because it only has 4 event 5 stars in the game right now, but I can see them doing this as Genshin has 2 event characters with the same 4 stars due to how many characters it has. The Light Cone banner is better. It has 80 pity max, not 90, so that's a nice little increase, and a 75% chance to get what you want, and there is only 1 featured light cone instead of 2. Genshin has 2 weapons, so winning a 50-50 doesn't even guarantee you'll get what you want. And its mercy system of having a guaranteed weapon after 2 fails is fine, but it shouldn't be 2 fails, it should just be 1. You should be able to pick which weapon you want, and if you don't get it on the first try, you're guaranteed to get that next. Having 2 weapons is more acceptable now because of the dual banners. I just hope to God if we get triple banners we don't get 3 5-star weapons. Lastly, there's the standard banner. It's the same as Genshin's, 90 pity max, you can get any 5-star light cone or 5-star character, but after 300 pulls, you can pick any character to get for free right there, right now, for only 1 time. I think this is a good mechanic. It's a guarantee getting a character you want, and I'll definitely be picking Welt because God, I need that imaginary DPS unit, and I think a permanent version of this on both Genshin and Star Rail's banners would be pretty good, because I think 300 wishes is a pretty good distance away from each other to guarantee getting any 5-star you want, because that is 3 5-stars away, and you could get complete dog shit on those 3 and then pick something you want on the guaranteed one. The last thing to mention is Star Rail's shop. The Undying Starlight section is the equivalent to the Star Glare in Genshin. You can get the 5-star light cones for 600 starlight. Pricey, but they're there if you can save up enough and you want a solid light cone for any path. It also has the character Eidolons that change monthly, and the standard event wishes, but it has no resources. The other shop is the Undying Embers shop. You can get resources, 5 standard and event wishes a month, and a track of destiny. These are the equivalents to Star Rail's crowns, and I probably should have mentioned this in the character segment, but these are the equivalent to crowns, and I think it's fine that they give these out so frequently, as they're needed a lot more than 3 times per character for the last level of a talent. My only complaint with the gacha, as cool as it is, that animation is just way too long, but the ticket glowing kind of fixes it. And there we have it, my professional overview of Honkai Star. I do hope you enjoyed this video, as well as part 1. This was something like a step out of my usual single character based content for Genshin, as well as a whole separate game. I really enjoyed making these 2 videos, and I hope you enjoyed watching them, and I hope I was able to explain some mechanics you may not understand initially. If another game strikes my fancy like this, I probably will make another full character analysis. That was the complete wrong term. A full game analysis on that game, but that's up for fate to decide. I hope I was able to explain some mechanics you didn't understand initially. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next video.